Hello, hello, hello. It's so great to have you here. I hope you're doing really, really well. I know that we're in the midst of crunch time and things can be a little bit stressful, but please remember you're not on your own. You're not alone, and we're all going through this crunch time together in different ways. But we're not alone in it, so hopefully that brings some comfort. But also, you're literally not alone. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you need some support, please don't forget that I'm here for you. I'm just an email, a phone call away, and we can meet up and go over anything that you might want to go over. So please let me know if you want to get together for an office hour, phone chat, or Zoom conference video. Uh, Otherwise, keep trucking, keep going. You're going to make it through. Uh, so let's go ahead and get started with today's discussion, and that is dealing with proving that there is a problem, persuading others about our passions. Uh, this is regarding to essay number 3, and we are going to be going over what that argument looks like. What sorts of things ought we to logically address if we want to prove that there's a problem, and not only be persuasive, but use strong reasoning and have a logically strong argument. So here's structure and strategy, and I'm not going to read each of these to you because we're going to go through each one individually, but here's a slide where you can sort of see the essay in a snapshot. And so you can see all the different things that we're going to want to address and cover and consider how many paragraphs we might need for to address each of these bullet points. So let's begin with the problem. The first part of this essay will address the problem, right? You need to prove that there is a problem. You're going to identify between one of the 8 different topics, whether it's your casebook presentation, whether it's another group's casebook presentation, whether it's one of the other chapters that we've read and discussed for over the course of the semester. You can take this larger umbrella topic and you can pinpoint to something of interest to you. It can be something that was brought forward in one of the readings. It can be something that was brought forward in one of the supplemental videos or questions or ideas that came through with some of the activities, the assignments, the discussion board, something that you thought of that related that we didn't discuss a whole lot, or maybe you posed in one of your discussion boards. Really, you have a lot of latitude with what you choose. But you just want to find something that's a problem in the world. It can be as focused, as close to you, or as far from you as you want it. Remember, you're writing a 5-page paper, so you'll have to narrow your topic just a little bit. But do you want it to be a problem in your neighborhood, a problem in your city, in your county, in your state, in the nation? Are we going more global with it? So you get to determine the scope of your problem as well. But once you've decided that, and it's something that you're passionate about, you're excited about, you should also look ahead to the next paper, which is going to be proposing a program to solve a problem. You can combine essay number 3 with essay number 4 if you're so inclined. And so as you're going to prove the problem here, then you can fold over this essay into essay number 4, and then you would compose the latter half with the program part for essay number 4. Conversely, you can write 2 separate essays, one problem essay on one problem, and then a different problem and a different solution for essay number 4. And finally, if you wanted to really delve into one idea or topic, you could take an aspect or an element from your casebook presentation that you'll be doing some research for, and then build upon those ideas and that conversation in writing this problem paper, and then fold this problem paper and build upon it into your essay number 4, which then you can present the possible solution as well. So you can sort of see how with your papers the rest of the semester is going to play out, and how it relates to the other readings and activities over the course of the semester. So one of the things it says here, think Swift's work, Jonathan Swift. We haven't read that just yet, but you will be reading it and come back to it because there's a lot. He does a really good job of logically and reasonably walking through, well, not reasonably, he's not actually reasonable, but he reasons well in his argument. So essentially what you need to do is not only prove there's a problem and address all the parts of a problem, but you also need to raise your readers' awareness and sense of the problem. You want to also get your reader to acknowledge and see how the problem affects all sorts of people, whether it's the reader, him, her, themselves, or if it's other folks, but the significance, the far-reachingness, and the depth to the problem. You've probably been looking at this question, how do we do that? And that's something that you'll want to consider. So we want to think about, as always, a balance between ethos, pathos, and logos. And so we want to think about, are there examples of suffering or loss? We want to balance those examples, those pathos-driven examples, with logos-driven data, evidence, and reasons and statistics, right? And that will also help to enhance our ethos. But also we're going to want to be really aware of our tone. We might have a more empathetic or compassionate or passionate tone, depending upon how we want to go about it, and how we want to approach our audience. But either way, we want to have that balance. What does it mean to gain your reader's assent? I want you to think on that for a moment. And while you're thinking, I'm going to go ahead and move on. Essentially, your reader needs to acknowledge, agree, concede to a certain degree the depth, range, and potential seriousness of the problem. That's what your goal is. And that means you're probably going to have to address hidden assumptions, your own hidden assumptions, as well as your reader's hidden assumptions. And hopefully the activities and the reading from last week on assumptions were really useful for you. And now it's easier for you to identify and acknowledge this. I'll give you some examples in just a bit of when we might want to address the hidden assumptions about our own claims. If we say something's a problem and we believe it's a problem, remember who your audience is and that your audience may not have the same values or beliefs as you. So you might, before you can go into proving that there's a problem and showing the depth and breadth of the problem and for whom the problem is, and that the problem is very urgent and needs to be addressed here today, right now, we can't wait any longer. You also want to consider, if your audience doesn't share that same value or belief, you might, before you can get into all of that, you might have to stop and even sort of prove with some backing and other evidence to your audience why they should even care about the problem to begin with, right? And I know this may sound ambiguous, and I'll give you more examples in just a moment. What obstacles do we face when trying to express the problem associated with the program to increase student success in higher education in our state? Well, let's think about this for a second. Many taxpayers never went to college, don't see the need to go to college, and instead they might be more concerned about the roads they drive on to get to work, or the social services that they and their family members can avail themselves of. Or maybe they have younger children and they're more concerned about elementary and secondary schools rather than higher education and university and college. they don't necessarily see that student success in higher education is very important. Now, this is where, before you can start to prove that there's a problem with student success in higher education in our state, you might need to address the hidden assumption. The hidden assumption, if we're going to talk about student success and having a concern about the lack of student success in higher education, then that means that we value education. There are some hidden assumptions about valuing education, about valuing student education and the different students, right? And just higher education at all, right? And so before you can even get into that, you might have to show why your reader should even care about the fact that it's beneficial for all if our students succeed in college, because often they'll go into careers where they might end up being in charge of fixing the roads that are important to us, or providing the social services that we might avail ourselves of. So do you see how you might, depending upon what your topic is and who your audience is, you might need to take that step back, and before you can delve into proving that there's a problem and it needs remedying, you might show why we should even care about the problem to begin with, the topic, right? So you can also think of this as bridging the gap between values, or identifying and providing backing for those hidden assumptions. So to what does a need for presence refer, do you think? Tick tock, tick tock, we're thinking, right? Well, I'm going to go ahead and share that with you. It's a sense of urgency, right? It's the need to act now. It's also reflecting as your own commitment as the author of this argument, the arguer's commitment to the issue. It's also explaining the reason why a reader, an audience member, should invest in the issue or the problem. When we talk about presence, it's giving a sense of immediacy to the arguer's or the writer's words. And so somehow you need to convey, if this is a problem and you want people to act on it and you want them to have awareness raised about this problem so that we can effect positive change, then you need to give some sense of urgency. You need to express why we can't wait any longer, right? And so this is where we're a little bit more involved with pathos, and we're looking into ethos in terms of our tone, in terms of the words we use, and in terms of the emotions that we seek to evoke. But we also need to be really careful that we don't move away from logic, that we escape logos, and we fall into fallacious reasoning. And so you don't want to commit any fallacies of your own, right? Because you want your argument to not only be persuasive, but also bound by logic and good, strong reasoning. So we need to be sure that we are maintaining that balance. So we need to engage the audience members' intellect as well as their emotions. So we really want to think about logos and pathos here. And how might we achieve presence? Well, we might show the reader the seriousness of the problem that we're addressing, or the consequences of not acknowledging the problem or not taking action to remedy the problem. Notice that even within this sort of pathos-driven reasons, we also want to include evidence. We want to include analysis. We want to include logic in the way that we put our examples together, express ourselves, back up our details of brief scenes, compelling examples with data, statistics, other factual support. And it's okay to talk about one specific person's experience, but if we leave it there, Are we oversimplifying the argument? Are we making hasty generalizations? So we want to then show, maybe it's great to describe a scene, a striking instance uh, of one person's experience, but then we need to back that up with data and statistics that show that this one person's experience is not the only experience, that there's a broad range of other people who have gone something through something similar. And so we want to be sure that we maintain logic along with our pathos. You can use figurative language, metaphors, analogies to make the problem being addressed more vivid, real, and tangible for your audience. Think about the five senses. If we can hear, see, taste, smell, touch, hear the problem, think about how much more that those visceral reactions will be, and that emotional response along with our intellectual response will really be striking to help drive home the severity of the problem you're discussing. Uh, we also want to shift from abstract language to concrete descriptions. And so you want to be sure, as I said, be sensory in your details, but also back it up with statistics, illustrative narratives, and make sure you maintain that balance along with the abstract. And so it is beneficial to sometimes have that singular focus on and put a face and a name to your problem, but don't leave it there, right? Follow that up with reasoning, with logic, with evidence, with data that shows that this is more than one person's issue. What do you perceive as being possible difficulties with persuading the audience to concede that there is, in fact, a problem? And you're going to think on that. Uh, but the law of inertia, right? We need to overcome people's tendency to remain at rest if possible. Uh, we've talked about and come back to the concept that I raised the first week of class: care, think, act. Some people just don't care. There's a sense of apathy and malaise, right? People don't want to be responsible or to have to do anything. But that's the beauty of writing this paper. That's the beauty of what you're going to be doing with your casebook presentations. That's the beauty of your program proposal essay number 4 paper, because you get to share what something that is close to your heart, that you're passionate about, that you think needs to be bettered in our world. You get to share that with the rest of this class, and at least 29 other people are going to be exposed and held responsible for it, right? By being exposed to and responsible for whatever your topic is. And therefore you're at least getting the word out, right? And then you'll have the opportunity to brainstorm and creatively think through and problem solve by coming up with your own possible solution for essay number 4. The other difficulty is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? That's why you have to show that something is broken and that it needs to be fixed. And not only is it broken and in need of fixing, but it's broken and in need of fixing right here, right now. We can't wait any longer, right? And that's in addition, we also have to think about this cost benefit analysis. That will also assist with getting an immovable audience member moved, right? Combating that law of inertia. We need to somehow convey that the benefits of fixing the problem will outweigh the cost of fixing the problem, right? Whether that cost is in time, in energy, in money, in emotion, in resources, other resources, physical resources, right? That whatever that cost is, the benefit of fixing the problem is much more significant. So what does it mean to address current courses of action? Uh, when you are coming up with a problem, most problems in the world, it's very rare that there's a problem where absolutely nothing is being done. You might come up with that problem and oh my gosh, that'd be great. And then you can come up with the possible program to solve it and yoo-hoo, that'd be pretty exciting. But typically for many of the problems that we have discussed and will be discussing in this class, there are current courses of action in place. And so to enhance your ethos and to strengthen your logos, you're going to need to address in your argument what's currently being done, what current programs are in place, and then what organizations are working to solve the problem and in what way are they solving it. And so um, what do you think needs to be addressed in your explanation of the problem? Well, you need to address how the frequent status quo or existing policies or the work of the organizations, no matter uh, how meaningful and well-intentioned, that they may not be working as well as they were intended. They may not be working at all, or we still have a problem. So even though they're making a dent, it's not a big enough dent because the problem still persists and it hasn't gone away, right? And so we need to argue that despite the current course of action, a problem still remains. Uh, um, and then we've talked about this. You've written an essay about this. Why should we raise counter arguments, address the opposition when arguing that there is a problem or an issue? Takes us back to some of what we were saying about hidden assumptions. There will be some people who may not agree that there's a problem, or they may not agree to the extent of your problem, or they may not agree that the current practices are not enough, right? And so we need to address that. We need to uh, we need to consider any raised objections the opposition might have toward our position on the problem. We need to address the opposition, and then we either are conceding, we're refuting, and we are also redirecting the argument back to our own problem. So even if you concede on one element, yes, sure, there are things transpiring, but as mentioned earlier, those organizations aren't effective enough. Therefore, there's still a problem. Do you see how you're redirecting it? If you're refuting, actually, current studies show that uh, that things haven't been cleared up yet, and so we still have a problem to address. Or despite um, not caring about higher education, we can see the need to have future people who will take care of us when we're older, making good, solid choices. So all sorts of things happening, right? So for your conclusion here, what sort of conclusion should you have? You have a little bit of flexibility here, right? Uh, we've been taught often to restate our thesis statement. And I don't know about you, but that's really difficult to do, right? Uh, and the reason it's really difficult to do is because you get your thesis statement stated perfectly, and then somebody says restate it. Well, I'm here to say don't restate your thesis statement. You're taught that, we are all taught that, I was taught that as well. We're taught to do that just to get us in the essay writing mindset. But at this level, we can branch out beyond that, and it will help us as we move forward in academic and other writing as well. Can we address the possible solutions? This is something to consider as well. So with your thesis statement, rather than restating your thesis statement, maybe think forward to what would the world look like if everybody believed and agreed with you that your problem was a problem and that it was this severe? Maybe think about the possible logical ramifications of whatever it is in your in your thesis statement that's the problem. So you can, instead of this paper, as the essay guidelines mention, you're not asked to come up with a possible solution. We're saving that for essay number 4. But what you could do is, if you're looking toward it without opening a new topic, you're still concluding your essay, you could mention if there are a few things that might be done to help. But you want to think about your intro and your conclusion as being bookends to one another, right? So whatever you if you start a story in your intro, you'll conclude that story in your conclusion. If you, some of the language in your intro, you'll use that in the conclusion. So maybe thinking about what the next steps are, or what can be done, or what happens when people are awoken to acknowledging the depth and breadth of your problem. So that's what you'll want to do in your conclusion here. All right, go forth and logically prove your problems. Can't wait to see what you're passionate about. Take care. Bye.